Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. Just thinking, do I have anything interesting to start this episode with? And I can't really think of much to say at all, so I think I might just get straight into it. This one is from the endearth.org website from a lady called Sara. I had officially hit rock bottom in my life. My prosperous career had ended abruptly due to an accident that caused a debilitating back injury, and I was wallowing in the depths of fear and victimhood. The doctor told me that my back would require surgery if I ever wanted to have a normal life again, but I had no means to pay for it. Angry bouts of pre-cancerous skin tumors had begun to pop up all over my body. I lived through my days lying in bed, in and out of consciousness with the drapes drawn, with daytime reality TV playing in the background. I existed in a debilitating mental state, with my emotions fluctuating between depression, anxiety, sadness, anger, and futility. Thoughts of ending it all began to enter into my mind. I had over-medicated daily with a cocktail combination of pain meds, antidepressants, anti-anxiety pills, and alcohol in an attempt to try to numb out all the physical and emotional pain I was feeling. I became I became so lost one day that I knew I had reached the brink to utter darkness. I cried out again in agony from my heart, asking God to save me. I was mad at God during this time and blamed Him for my predicament. Before my accident, I had prayed for help in finding happiness in my life and had been in the accident instead. Things had become much worse instead of getting better. At the time of my first prayer, I remember feeling guilty and ashamed, because even though I had all the material comfort I needed and the perfect husband, I still didn't feel happy inside, and that something was missing. That evening of my second prayer and my soul cry for help, I was already feeling much better emotionally, and it was at the start of my husband's weekend, so we decided to go out for dinner and drinks. While we were in town and walking to the restaurant, I felt an energetic presence rushing in all around me. I felt like a huge bout of conscious energy was pushing or closing in on me from every direction. I became completely terrified. I kept turning around as we were walking, expecting to see someone looming behind or over me. My husband became annoyed by my paranoid behavior and asked what in the world I was doing and what was wrong with me. I tried to explain but couldn't. I felt as if I was coming out of my skin, similar to a balloon floating from a string that was barely tied down. When we arrived at the restaurant, I started pouring drinks down my throat in rapid succession to try to drown the intensity of what I was experiencing. That's all I remember until I awakened. The next thing I knew, I was lying on the floor of the entryway in our home, with my husband standing over me. He looked helpless and terrified. I didn't remember a thing that had happened after sitting in the restaurant. He told me I'd thrown up in the car on the way home. While he went inside to get something to clean me up, I'd gotten out of the car somehow, on my own, and had fallen and hit my head. He couldn't find me anywhere and thought I'd wandered off, but finally found me face down on the cement walkway on the side of our yard. He somehow got me inside and was able to place me on the floor of the entryway where I finally awakened. The very first thing I noticed upon awakening was that I could literally feel all the intense energy of terror and panic that was radiating from my husband. Yet I felt unusually calm and peaceful myself. I wondered momentarily if I was dead, because I had heard this is what the feeling is like of being away from one's own fear and becoming a detached observer. I could see the energy of the terror in him as it being separate from his core being. I just knew it was something easily managed. I instantly knew how to soothe him energetically and went right to work doing it. All I wanted to do was comfort him. I didn't even know that I was injured and felt no pain, so as I tried to sit up, he stopped me, crying, and informed me that I had serious head injury and I was bleeding severely. I was completely nonplussed by this and felt no emotion or physical pain. All I can say was that I went to sleep as one distinct consciousness, and when I awoke I awoke as another consciousness completely. I was still me, but suddenly a much more enhanced version, detached from my human condition of pain and suffering. I didn't have any recollection of an experience while I was unconscious until it slowly started to come in during the days that followed. In those following days, I caught up to, or rather, I was able to safely acclimatize to everything that had happened while I was unconscious. I saw it all in lucid dreams. I had never experienced lucid dreams before, so this was an entirely new experience for me. The whole experience reminded me of transferring a huge program from a website to a temporary internet file and then actually opening it onto your computer and allowing it to download fully at its own pace. This felt like it needed to happen in order for my body and mind to be able to handle the process and the huge energetic shift and all the information that I had absorbed. I had no one to tell what was happening to me while it was occurring, so I just sat back and enjoyed the experience in a state of wonder and awe. I now felt completely conscious and awake in every cell of my body for the first time in my life. I was very aware that I was seeing the world through entirely new, enlightened eyes. I knew everything was going to be okay in my life, and I had no fear, only anticipation and an excited feeling to hurry up and get started with whatever was about to happen. The first night in the hospital, I could feel all the inner emotional pain of all the people and even noticed what the doctors and nurses were feeling. I noticed that there was a very calm peacefulness that was radiating and generating love from my heart center, and that it was having a soothing effect on everyone around me, calming them and healing away stuff they had taken upon themselves. Strangers at the hospital befriended me, and hospital staff went out of their way to converse with me, much to the curiosity of my husband. I knew why, but felt the need to say nothing but just share a state of high consciousness with everyone who came near. From that moment on, I was able to feel the pure vibration of a person and all the fear and insecurity floating around them, much like a bad computer virus that could easily be swept away. Something alive inside of me was able to speak to an other's energy and reassure them that everything was really okay. That it was all just debris that was swirling around within them. I knew inside myself, without any doubt, that everything was and always had been okay and would continue to be so always. I knew there was a plan. I was able to sense fear energy as dense, weak, and crying loudly. This never went away, and I help clients today sharing this gift, among others that I received. While the test showed a major concussion, I recovered quickly, not only from my head trauma, but from any pain that I'd ever felt in my back, almost completely subsided. I had a full range of motion and strength again. My back problems had vanished. I no longer needed any of my meds, so I completely went off every prescription I'd ever taken. There was so much still to download, and I understood that what I came back with was so immense, and it would take quite a bit of linear time to customize my body to what was actually going on. So I began to meditate to speed up the process. I suddenly felt the craving to do this and discovered that I was instantly good at meditating, even though I'd never done it prior to this. Previously, my ability to focus even for a moment was impossible because my mind was a lot like a 5-year-old on a sugar high. Before this experience, I was extremely impatient and incapable of sitting still or listening or focusing for longer than a few seconds. I had always rolled my eyes at anything that related to New Age or spirituality. To me, it had all been like a strange foreign language for weirdos. But I found that I was suddenly speaking it fluently myself and talking about chakras, energy, spiritual awakenings, and other touchy, feely words which I would have gaffed at previously. I had battled with my angry pre-cancerous skin tumors during my mentally ill state of existence, which I now completely understood were simply a numerological equation of energy that had resulted in matter that was out of alignment to the harmonious balance of nature. There's no other way to describe it. In human terms, my cancer and back injury were the direct result of my mental and emotional state and were manifesting into physical disease. I had no fear towards death or illness anymore, so I simply started directing or harnessing or aiming mathematical equations of harmonious love towards my ailments without really trying, but allowing, and it manifested a harmonious physical result. Everything that was out of alignment in my life, both emotionally and physically, healed quickly and efficiently. My new understanding of numbers, math, and physics were both interesting and ironic, because all my life I'd struggled with even the simplest arithmetic. I still don't possess the knowledge to solve math problems, but I know I don't have the need. But now I don't have the need. I just have to apply the energy itself now and not try to figure out the math part. But I love numbers and equations and everything science related just the same. As time went on and I was in my healing stage, I still felt my old panic attacks, but only sensed them on a physical level now. Again, I felt no fear, just a curiosity about them. I soon discovered that I felt them more often when I was around other people and began to understand what they were about. Because I had no debilitating fear shutting me down emotionally when they popped up, I was able to see that they were not a panic attack, but more of a physiological effect that would occur when around the energy of spirit. I started relaying to others around me what the energy was saying, and was quickly validated that these were other people's past loved ones who were always around us. It's just that we can't normally hear them through our human blocks of fear and negative life imprints. Spirits were somehow able to come through whatever portal that had been opened inside of me, yet it took everything participating energetically or simply being open and curious to hear them clearly. I remember this ability to sense spirits as a child, but I was always afraid that it was an evil presence due to my religious upbringing. I also saw how uncomfortable it made others around me when I would behave intuitively or different in any way. But now I was all back in full force, like the radio dial that had been tuned in and the volume dial turned on high. Soon people found me through word of mouth to have readings, and I knew it was really their loved ones in spirit form that inspired them to connect us. People would find their way intuitively to me in the most craziest ways, in spite of the fact that I wasn't advertising. I knew we were attracting to each other energetically with the help of their spirit family and friends. Many other amazing and exciting things occurred. I would wake up each day knowing tons of new information that would have otherwise taken years to learn. I was excited to see the information I received validated verbatim as I would look it up online. I was tired during much of this downloading process, and I felt my DNA was shifting too and becoming more spiritual. While I knew I had the ability to dial it back to be more comfortable, I had no desire to do so. I knew there was something to do with my negative blood type, which somehow made the walls of my blood cells more able to download, but never quite figured out how or why. I have since sensed this same negative blood type energy in others and discovered that they always are, and many have had near-death experiences too. I'm not sure what this is all about yet, but it's curious. I started to smell what I can only describe as heaven. It's a combination of the most wonderful incense, warm baking cookies, and white flowers. While smelling it during a reading once, I actually had a client who was like me energetically and asked if I smelled that smell. I almost started crying to know that another smelled this wonderful aroma too. We both said at the same time, "It smells like heaven." I naturally changed my eating habits to a more alkaline diet because that feels energetically like love, whereby processed foods, those foods high in acidity, feels like fear. I didn't even realize this was what I was doing until I was led to an article about alkaline foods and acidic foods causing cancer. I simply did it to make my cells more efficient and in harmonious balance to be able to receive the many downloads I was receiving. In the beginning, I would wake up in the morning with 3D pictures of sacred geometric figures and DNA strands and other symbols I'd never seen before, dancing on the soft black backs of my eyelids. Just as I was coming conscious again, I started seeing faces not of this world, but uncomfortable, some felt uncomfortable and scary at first to my human mind, whenever I wasn't proactively open-minded and just trusted the process. I found the more I let go and trusted, the more I was able to see. Whenever I close my eyes, I see a giant eye or iris staring back at me that suddenly goes horizontal and starts spinning as I evolve into a galaxy or universe. More things still continue to occur. I have a fascination with quantum physics now and understand energy in a way that transcends my human capacity and human mind. I continue to grow, evolve, and love the process. I know there is so much we will never figure out because the cosmic joke lies in a wave becoming a particle. The moment we focus our intention on it, it becomes our current reality. Somehow I know why we're here and where we're all headed. I've become fully conscious of my life and to my spiritual evolution. I have experienced visitations from spiritual beings and extraterrestrial encounters in dreams and meditation, and see activity in the sky constantly in response to our simply asking. I am no longer afraid or embarrassed to talk about it and to talk about my experiences. Now, as a practicing spiritual medium, I experience daily validation from clients that our souls really do live on eternally. I also know that from spirit world that this plane or dimension is just a tangible, shapeable learning matrix that has no emotion except for what we as humans attach to it, a bit like the wave particle thing I just mentioned. There are other worlds besides this one. I can even see the energetic grid of the sky now, and I also see millions of tiny light beings or energies that look like fireflies buzzing around everywhere. I'm able to see an energetic force field around all things. Sometimes when I'm gazing at a fixed object without thinking about anything particular, I can see it start to dance and fluctuate as the hologram it really is, until it reaches out, until I reach out and touch it, at which point it becomes stationary and tangible again in one solid particle. I appreciate the utter genius of the physics and math behind this place, and in the sun, the moon, stars, and space. I know we as our current human selves can't fully grasp, but as we become more spirit again, we'll begin to understand. I was fortunate through my near-death experience in this lifetime to reconnect to the source of all there is, an infinite intelligence who wants us to find our way back to the nurturing folds of unconditional love. I only knew a conditional God before my experience, except for when I was a very young child and God was my imaginary friend. In my prayer, I asked God to be happy, and the answer was to take me off my old path and reinsert me into a better one. I am completely happy today, something I never thought I would achieve. I know I would never have quit my great sales career on my own without the accident. I know I touched back in after being in the human condition in order to fully connect back with my soul and the spirit world during this lifetime so I could fulfill my spiritual calling as a spiritual medium, helping others find closure and understand the real heaven, not the man-made one. I know man has created a God that hinders the way back to his true presence. I also know that we are each finding our way back to the real God of love in our own perfect time through our own energetic mathematical equations or lessons progression. I can sense now the most efficient way back to the love of Source is to trust in the flow of nature, to love ourselves, and to love others selflessly. We have the ability in this lifetime to gain mastery over our human thoughts and become conscious observers of our continuous states of being human, so we can learn in a more efficient and non-judgmental way. I now know that the beauty is in the journey and not the destination. The more I allow myself to sift through my life experiences, I'm able to truly see all sides of the coin and learn traits like compassion, patience, and selfless love. Then I can become spiritual and fluid again, and move back into the more spiritual state of awareness and into the light. What I didn't understand before my near-death experience was that my accident was the beginning was the beginning stages of God's answer to my prayer. God's second answer to my request to deliver me from the depths of my midnight of the soul came in the form of a near-death experience that evening. I was ready to come home and go to work. My experience woke me up, reconnected me spiritually, and completely changed the path of my life forever. I've seen into my earlier life and recognized all these times I had received the chance to show up, fully using my divine gifts, but I chose to be in the condition for a longer time. I wasn't done. I now know that there is no right or wrong way to evolve for any of us, and that it's all part of our free will to decide when we wake up and start to come home. I know that as far into the trenches of the human condition that I went into matches the level of compassion I feel for others now, who come to me in deep pain and suffering. Nothing scares me or rattles my cage now. I was shown two distinct times when I had the chance to step onto my path, but I chose to go even deeper and sift through some more things that I wanted to examine. It was my choice to come back when I finally reached the brink. I recognized that it was predetermined agreement or a spiritual contract with God. I have no regrets and forgive myself for any harm that I've caused in others, just as freely as I forgive any harm anyone has ever caused me. I know we just show up energetically to learn from each other, sometimes painfully so, and sometimes in a more fun, easy way. There's so much more that can be shared here. It would take lifetimes for me to write it, though. So my initial impression of that experience is wow. But to be honest, I did get a little bit lost in what I was reading there. I'm not the most super intelligent, and sometimes I have to read things a couple of times. Sometimes it just flows naturally and it's easy to understand. This experience I think it just had so much in it, and it was constantly jumping around from one pretty profound statement to the next. It was hard to keep a track of exactly what miraculous things were going on in Sarah's life, but the bits I did get out of it was, like, wow, why can't something like that happen to me? Like, so this lady, she's got some serious mental health issues, incredibly depressed, bad anxiety. She's got a lot of anger. She's got a lot of futility. Like, what's the point? And she miraculously has this near-death experience. Then all these negative states are kind of just wiped away, and it seems like they're wiped away in a permanent way. It's like she I think she says at one point in this experience she wakes up after, and it's like she's gone from one state of consciousness to the next. This kind of reminds me a little bit of what happened to one of the better known spiritual teachers, leaders in our time, Eckhart Tolle, who had a similar thing. He was suicidal. He was on the brink of. He planned it out. He worked out what he was actually going to do, and then goes to bed that night, planning to, I think, end it the next day or shortly after. And he wakes up in this new state of consciousness. He didn't have a near-death experience or anything like that. He just heard this little voice inside him say, "Don't resist." And then the next day he wakes up with this sort of afterglow, which is similar to what near-death experiences describe when they come back from this spiritual realm. They just see life completely differently. It's intoxicating to them. Suddenly they go from this state of hating it, resisting it, fearing it, to just being absorbed in the awe and the wonder of it all. And it's like they're totally transformed overnight. And this sounds very similar to what Eckhart Tolle describes in his interviews and books as to what actually happened to him during his spiritual awakening. It's similar to what Sara has written about here. So let's go through it again and see if we can make a little bit more sense out of it. I mean, I think that's the crux of it there, what I just described, but I like to go through it in a little bit more detail again. So Sarah's story is she starts off by writing, "My life had officially hit rock bottom." She was wallowing in self-pity. She didn't like life. The doctor just tells her that she would require back surgery if she ever wanted a normal life again, but this adds extra burden because it's going to cost a lot of money, and I don't understand the American healthcare system, so I won't even bother trying to go into that. So she's got angry bouts of pre-cancerous skin tumors as well, popping up all over her body. And so she's in bed pretty much, drifting in and out of consciousness. Can't move because of her back problems, and obviously there's those skin tumors as well that wouldn't be much fun to deal with too. So there she is, she's lying in bed, drifting in and out of consciousness. Drapes are drawn, curtains down, watching depressing daytime TV, and just, in this, I guess, suicidal state. She doesn't want to exist anymore, and I can relate to this first little bit because I've often, in my early years, felt this way myself. You just don't want to get out of bed, although I had no physical ailments. It was more just my mental state, and my deep depression. Just lock myself in the room, not want to exist, and obviously when you've got some health conditions thrown in on top of that, it makes your desperation even greater. So she is over medicating, which is what I guess fairly modern. Well, not modern. I guess people have done this for a long time on all sorts of different substances to escape from the condition of suffering that they're in. In her case, she's taking antidepressants. She's taking anti-anxiety pills. I don't know what they are, but from what I know about that, they're probably benzodiazepams, which are highly addictive, and they're very effective in the short term for taking away any anxiety, but when you are using them for long periods, they become very problematic and less effective. Like most drugs, you get tolerance, and you need them just to function normally rather than using them as they were intended in the first place, to take away those initial peaks of distress. But she's also mixing these pills with alcohol, and this is just in an attempt to numb the physical and emotional pain that we all feel. Again, I can relate to what's going on here. I did this a bit myself for a while, a long while actually, and it's just a terrible state to be in, and those of you with any conditions can, relate to, I guess, what this person is saying. It doesn't need to be an escape from physical pain. It can be, just the mental state of suffering that humans can endure, which is never ending. If you start focusing on that thing, if you start focusing on the negativity, you can always find more. So this is her way of coping. It's through substances and medications to try and take all that pain away. And I guess her next step is, when this isn't really working, she says, she cries out one day in agony from the heart, asking God to save me. She says she's mad at God because she blames God for the predicament she's in. And she says she's in this prayer, she asks God to find happiness. And instead of happiness, she's finding herself in a lot of suffering, and that's what makes her quite upset with God. Again, I can relate to this. I, on a regular basis, go into a bit of darkness in my own experience and wonder why this place is so hard, and why there's so much suffering, and especially in my job in healthcare, it's regularly in my face, these people in a great deal of pain and in a difficult time in their lives, like through whether it be an accident or an illness such as dementia. They're hurting, and it's difficult to be around that energy or that environment where people are, most of them, when they're in pain like that, really just want it to be over, and they're pretty desperate. They either want their life to end or just lots of drugs to cope with it. And it's hard. It is hard being around those difficult scenes, but I don't know. I feel that's kind of what my purpose is in life now, to be around these situations where people really need help. And I try to do my best, but sometimes it's difficult to see if I'm making any difference at all. But anyway, I don't know how I got sidetracked onto my own little purpose or journey there, but let's continue with Sara's experience. So this is the bit where I got a little bit confused. Oh no, so I think I get the gist of what happens next. So she's in bed, in and out of consciousness, and then this next paragraph she's writing. Okay, so she decides to go out for dinner one night because she's feeling a little bit better emotionally, and the husband's got a few days off, so they decide to go into town and have a bit of a night out. And she, in this scenario, decides to have a few drinks, and she has one and then another, and the next thing she knows, she's feeling this incredible energy that she has never felt before. She says it's like beyond the alcohol. It's something she can't explain. She felt as though she's coming out of her skin, similar to a balloon floating from a string that was barely tied down. So, just my little take on that, it sounds like some sort of spiritual awakening. It sounds like the soul is expanding or leaving the body, or consciousness is, um, it's starting to overtake her experience rather than letting the human side of it, letting the ego drive exactly what's going on. It's like this external power that we all have within us that is very connected to the universe, and the way this body functions is starting to take over rather than let that mind dominate what path it takes. So what does she say? And then she says, um, the next thing she remembers is lying on the floor of entry to her home. So she's just lying there, and one of the first things she notices is she can sense the energy that her husband is projecting. He's terrified, he's panicked, and this is radiating from him. And this is interesting that this is one of the first things that she actually picks up. It's like she is almost instantaneously aware of this energy. It's like she can see it, she can feel it. It's almost a tangible thing for her, and she's not quite sure what's going on, because at this point she's just woken up. She's had a big night. She doesn't know why she's on the ground. She's had no near-death experience at this point of the story. She's literally just woken up after having a few drinks and a fall on the ground, and suddenly she's a lot more sensitive and can feel energies. And her automatic response to this fear and terror of the husband is to try and calm him down, like energetically. I don't know exactly what that means, but this is her initial instinct, is to try and soothe him. So she doesn't even know that she's injured. She tries to sit up, and then she sees that she's actually bleeding quite severely, but feels no physical or emotional pain. But she's really starting to sense that she has arisen from this accident in a totally new state of consciousness, and seems very detached from the human condition of pain and suffering. It's almost like she is the witness to this rather than being absorbed into that energy. And this is similar to what, like I was saying at the start, I mentioned a teacher called Eckhart Tolle, who was one of the first guys I stumbled across when I started my spiritual awakening. And this is very similar to what he describes. It's like being in the present moment, being the witness to your emotions and your thoughts rather than actually thinking you are these thoughts yourself. It's like you're a separate entity to your body, is basically what he's saying. And this awareness that you are is able to watch what your human body is doing and how it's functioning in this world. And it's like all of us have these two different parts to us, that we've got the body, the mind, and underneath all that is something else which is much more magical, miraculous, and it is able to um, take a back seat to all the suffering, and just watch it from afar almost. And this awakening is something I would dream of having. Like I try and meditate every now and then. I can only really get 10 minutes here and there. And I often think of this state that people have reached when they have had some kind of spiritual awakening. And I try to get to that point, and I can watch my thoughts and my emotions, but only briefly, and then quickly they become my experience rather than me just watching them. And it's hard to stay in that state where you are able to take a back seat to the drama that's having you. You might get there, or I might get there on brief occasions, but suddenly the reality of being human will quickly knock that to the side, and you'll get a sore back or a sore leg, or something negative will happen in your experience, and like the click of your fingers, you're back into that mind ego state where the drama becomes all consuming and you can't detach from it. You can't separate from it. It becomes your experience rather than you watching it from afar. It becomes um, it just overtakes all your awareness, and you are totally absorbed in whatever is happening in your mind and your physical experience. So I guess that is one of the aims of meditation, and is to practice putting that separation in there and growing that inner awareness. But yeah, it's hard. I struggle with it anyway. I guess it's some people find it easier than others, and some people get these miraculous experiences where they're able to literally overnight change their perspective of their own reality. I guess in my own case, I had a similar one, but it wasn't as nice as this. It was more a darker sort of hellish awakening, and that has sort of pushed me towards seeking out spiritual wisdom to deal with that. And yeah, for me, it's not a silver bullet. It helps. Spirituality is a big part of my life now, and it just, for me, it doesn't take all the suffering away like it did for this lady. She says she's happy all the time now. I don't know. I didn't think that was possible, but I come from a little bit of a background with mental health issues such as depression and anxiety, and happiness is often one of the more distant feelings that seem to be attainable when you are in those states. So I'm constantly on this up and down kind of cycle where it's never the same long, and I always assume that's what it's like for most people, but I guess there's some who are on more of a sort of steady, happy high, and others that are on a lower low for greater periods, and it's a very subjective topic, really, because no one really knows what their other person's like, their existence is like, until they've actually lived in those person's shoes, which these experiences tell us we can do one day through our life reviews, and get to see how others experience their own time here. But at the core of all that, there is this understanding for me now that regardless of how you experience this life, it's just the ego or the shell or the human that you're experiencing it through. And at the end of the day, there's something that is much more powerful within us all that supersedes any of this superficial stuff we go through as a human. So now we get to the part in this experience where she kind of begins to realize with a little bit more certainty exactly what has gone on with her. She says she goes to sleep a few days later and has a lucid dream. Now, this is interesting, a lucid dream. To explain what a lucid dream is before, but for those of you who don't know, from my understanding, a lucid dream is when you have a dream, it's like a normal dream, but suddenly you're able to kind of wake up in this dream and direct it in whatever direction you like. So I guess that means the possibilities are infinite. If you wanted to go to sleep and have a lucid dream, if you have that skill, I guess you could go and explore the universe, you could go and travel the world, you could have any sort of experience you liked. This is what I understand the lucid dream is. But for her, this dream is a reliving of what actually happened while um, what happened that night. She went out with her husband and knocked her head. She says this is when she had her near-death experience. She doesn't go into any detail as to what this near-death experience was like, which is very unique for a story from this website. But at the same time, it doesn't really matter because it's quite interesting. In fact, I find it quite fascinating to learn what the after effects of near death this near death experience was. And like a lot of people who come back from near death experience, her sensitivity goes through the roof. So she has this fall. Husband takes her to the hospital, and now she's in the hospital, and she can sense thoughts, emotions, feelings of people everywhere around her, the doctors, the nurses, the patients. And at the same time, she is also kind of just watching in awe at this own peacefulness and gentleness that's radiating from her own being. And this is, she can sense that this is having a calming effect on everyone around her, and to the point where people are actually approaching her and coming up and making conversations with her, all to the amusement of her husband, because this has never happened before. And she's aware that she has this higher state of consciousness, this gift from the divine has suddenly intervened within her little experience, and she's able to manifest this loving energy which just draws people in. I think most of us have come into contact with someone who has this sort of special energy or calmness about them that just draws you in and makes you want to be in their presence. For me, there's one guy I work with. He's a really young guy. He seems wise beyond his years and just seems so nonplussed about life. It just seems like a breeze for him. He's in this constant state of positivity, of um, just seems to have this invisible barrier to stress and anger. And this is what I think of when I'm reading this story right now. And I'm sure it happens to people all the time, and not in such a dramatic way. They're just born that way. But yeah, I can kind of picture what this lady is explaining here. And it's another, this part here is another part that is described by Eckhart Tolle. He says, I remember him saying that, you know, we all can tap into this energy, and but I think, you know, this is what these spiritual, some of these people who have these spiritual awakenings, this is what they go through. They literally change so much of um, you know, their existence, their experience, their perspective on life is just totally ripped away from their old way of thinking, and replaced is this energy, this calmness, this love that is so attractive to some people, and some people just radiate this out, and this lady is having that experience. And I love hearing about this stuff, and yeah, I'd love to um, talk to her actually. Um, so she's able, with this new superpower almost, to feel the vibration, and she sees just about every person she comes into contact with. She sees the fear and the insecurity that floats around with them. And she says that this is a bit like a bad computer virus that could easily be swept away. And this new power of hers, she's able to do that. The energy she's radiating is just, it just blitzes through this negativity that other people are going through and replaces it with a sort of calming present sort of energy. And this is what draws people to her, I guess, because it's removing their suffering. And she says, an interesting, Lynette's line's a little bit interesting. She says, I knew inside myself without any doubt that everything was, always has been, and always will be okay. And she says, I know there's a plan. Doesn't expand on that. I'd love to know a little bit more as to what this plan is, or if she actually found out what the plan was, and what she actually means by that. Is that a plan for her? Is that a plan for everyone? Is that a plan for the whole planet? Are we on this trajectory as a species where the outcome is certain? There's no doubt as to where we're heading. I'd just like a little bit more information on what she actually means by I know there was a plan. As she recovers, this newfound peace that is within her core is it remains. Often when someone has a near-death experience, they will feel this afterglow, but as time goes by, it slowly fades away, and after a few weeks, it's they're back to their uh, normal state and their normal human state, and often that is accompanied by some pretty severe depression, as you would, because you're in this. Sorry, I didn't understand that. As you would, and so sorry, I just got a bit distracted by my watch there. So yeah, when you've been in this heaven-like realm and then you're suddenly drawn back into a darker, heavier energy like you are in Earth, the natural reaction is to go back into that energy yourself and lose that glow or that higher vibration that you picked up from the spiritual realm. But in her case, it seems to be more of a permanent state. So she says, even to the point where she doesn't need any antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications anymore. She's in this high state that cures all her previous ills. And she starts to talk about meditating. She just decides, okay, I'm going to take this up, and is instantly an expert at it. This is incredible because she says before her experience, her mind was like a child on a 5-year-old on a sugar high, which gives you an idea of the kind of hyperactivity that she would have been going through, and to think that she has gone from this state of ego into this calm, blissful, thoughtless experience. It's quite incredible. Because previous to this experience, she used to roll her eyes even at meditation or anything spiritual, and things like terms like chakras and spiritual awakenings were double Dutch to her and had no significance. But now she finds herself talking about these herself and having quite a bit of passion about it. And she describes a little bit about how her physical health deteriorated, and I guess this is can be we can relate to all this in our own personal health battles. Is that she and like again another quite a few other experiences seem to say that our mental state is very reflective of what happens to our own physical bodies. And she says this is because when we are in that state of negativity, and we're not harmonious with nature, as she puts it, the negative health effects that we have are a direct result of the negativity manifesting within our mind, and this turns into physical disease. So I that kind of makes sense, but then you think about little kids who get cancer, and they're too young to even understand or know what negative thoughts are, and I find it hard to believe that just the state of your mind or your being can be one of the most dominant forces into affecting your health. But on the other hand, I think it is possible, because I read it time and time and again in these experiences that those with happier, positive thoughts have better health outcomes. And I think even science has proven that, but it doesn't explain everything. But yeah, in this lady's case, she just has really had a miraculous type of experience here, because like even her pre-cancerous tumors are healed by what has happened to her. She's also had this download, which has given her the ability to solve math problems. She is, what does she say? She says everything science related, she understands at a whole new level. So she says she still gets panic attacks, but now after her awakening, she has a better understanding of them, and they don't hurt her anymore. They just give her a little bit of curiosity when she has one. Like she tries to understand it a little bit better, and the way she gets it is, from what I read here, is she says that when she's by herself, there's no when she's not around other people, that she's fine. It's just when she's around others, she's able to see the physiological effect of that mingling energy between people, and this has an effect on her energy, the energy of her spirits. And this is how she explains her, I guess, social anxiety. And for me personally, who also gets a little bit lost in big crowds, and I'm much more of a homebody, and prefer in a way to be alone, but at the same time I need other people in my life. It's like this constant battle for me. Like when I'm alone, I want to be with other people. When I'm with other people, I sometimes want to be alone. So yeah, that's a possible explanation there. Like sensitive people can pick up other energies, and it can be draining. So she goes on to explain that she has a little bit, a few gifts now, like she is able to, connect with the spiritual world, and people are drawn to her because she's able to contact people who have passed on. And she says that she doesn't even advertise her ability to do this anymore. She just feels that people are being guided to connect with her, and get the that she's the one who's able to help them connect to these people who have passed on. And she describes a little bit about God. She says that humans have created a God, like through religions, I guess, that actually hinders what God's true presence is like. Um, and she goes on to say that each of us are going to be finding our way back to the real God of love in our own perfect time through our own energetic mathematical equations or lesson progressions. So I guess that's a way of saying potentially we have this path in this life that will put us on a trajectory that will push us further away from source, from love, from the creator. And that is going to be through darker experiences. And those darker experiences are naturally going to force us to seek answers. And those answers might lead us to a path towards God, or it could mean that we're just on this journey, and we might already have God there, and that relationship might get stronger through certain events. I don't know, but that's just the way I see it. But she says the best way, and I like this bit of advice, I've got to tell you, it sounds very true. The best way to connect to the source of love or God is to trust in the flow of nature. Secondly, to love ourselves. I'll say that one again, to love ourselves. And thirdly, to love others selflessly or unconditionally. And she says that we all, in this lifetime, have the ability to gain mastery over our thoughts and become the conscious observers of our continuous state of being a human. So, and this will just lead us to a whole heap of benefits if we're able to watch the way our body functions, our mind functions and operates, rather than us thinking that is who we are. If we can take a step back and know we are a spiritual being within this human, we begin to see this experience very differently. And it takes a lot of faith, I guess, to take that leap and to separate your, everything you've known as a human, like what you're thinking, what you're seeing is who I am, when in reality it's not. It's just your spirit having this experience as a human. And if you can connect more with that spirit and see the human side of yourself as separate and not who you truly are, then you can begin to see this experience you're having, I guess, through what you could say through God eyes, because you are connecting to that part of you that is a fragmentation of the divine. And when you start to do that, you begin to see this life very differently, like this experience is telling us. So this experience has been, for me, very interesting to read. Although there was no incredible way of dying and then a crossover into this remarkable other dimension, for me, I like this one a lot because it's relatable to us all. Like in that we uh, can use these lessons that she's telling us to try and change our own paths. And although a lot of us will never get to this point of really um, connecting with this divine energy to such an extreme extent, there is the possibility of being able to at least reach it um, in moments within our lives. And anything is better than nothing, in my opinion. So if you can get little glimpses of what the bigger picture of what this universe is all about, and give us it gives us the chance to live life a lot more freely and with a lot more happiness and positivity. So hopefully you guys got a little bit out of this experience too. There's nothing more I really want to add to all that. It was a good experience, in my opinion, to read. If you want to contact me, my email is podafterlife@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. It's a pleasure to have you join me for these experiences, and hopefully you're getting the guidance you need from your guides, and just accepting that what is happening around you is exactly what you need to be experiencing right now. Although if it is a negative thing that you're going through, just try to understand it won't go forever, and it will eventually pass, and something could be even more beautiful at the end of that, because that's often how the universe works. We in this experience anyway, hopefully not always, hopefully it's just a human thing. When you go through difficulties and darkness, you often see the light at the end of that, and just keep that in mind if you are in a darker place right now. So sending you my love and light, and looking forward to talking to you next week. Goodbye.